Will Dwight's FBI case receive a verdict of not guilty?
Will Bevel Aqua become an ally or a deep-rooted foe?
How deep will Tyson get into the gangster life?
And how big a pain in the rear end will Cal Thresher be for Dwight?
Red and Red Real Reviews hangs with the mob in season 2 of Paramount's Tulsa King.
Ahoy, ladies! Didn't see you there. Would you guys like to set sail on this ocean of flavor?
Randall, look at eye contact. You're gonna be cool, right?
Oh, baby, I'm as cool as the other side of the pillow.
Been staring at this board for days.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
Act. Bears eat beets.
My brain is on fire. I'm dying.
I am the one who knocks.
Bears. Beets. Battlestar Galactica.
When they say 2% milk, I don't know what the other 98% is.
It's hard to believe we're even the same species.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
Oh my god. The microchip has been compromised.
Dracarys.
And welcome back. So I dressed for this one. Have the mob wife aesthetic, they call it.
Quite high society there, mink coat.
Yeah. So I was trying to get into the groove of, it's kind of we just did the Penguin a couple episodes ago. So kind of getting back into the mob gangster subject matter, I guess. This is a little bit different.
Just don't wear it around Summer from Yellowstone or you get paint thrown on you.
Yeah. It's actually I think Beth from Yellowstone kind of has a coat like this out in like the first season or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've seen people dressing like her for Halloween. Yeah.
When they get married too, I think she wears the leopard print.
Yes. That's her she's got a little bit of the mob wife aesthetic. So
yeah.
This is a little bit of the mob aesthetic with a twist because, you know, Dwight is from New York and he's taken down in Tulsa, which I've heard is not really correct to call it the South. I guess that's a controversial thing.
Yeah, I would call that West.
It's more like the Midwest.
Yeah.
Midwest or West. So I learned to not say it's part of the South. But it's so it's a little bit of the rough and tumble of the Midwest combined with the gangster notion of the East. So this was a show that I recommended to everyone I knew. Like we have my husband's stepdad watching it right now. So, you know, during the first season, well, yeah, he actually was, you know, saying to my husband, like, "Oh, are you caught up on Tulsa King?" And my husband was like, "No, we have a few to watch." And he's like, "Oh man, you're not caught up. Like you're the one who told me to watch it." So he watched a bunch of it really fast because he really liked it. They were the ones to tell us to watch Yellowstone, oddly enough, which is kind of funny. So
good for that.
Yeah. So I mean, during the first season, it was fun to sit back. You know, I had already watched the first season, so it was just like, all right, let's go with the second season. Because I looked at the premiere date. Season 1 premiered almost exactly 2 years ago in 2022. So like, it's been a while that we've been waiting for this second season. So, I mean, like when I don't know if you decided to cover it or if I kind of agreed like, oh yeah, I've seen it, I think we should cover it. But what did you think overall? Did it live up to the expectations of how good it was? You know, when I told you should watch it or that you would enjoy it?
I don't remember you telling me to watch it, but I just remember it being kind of lost in the weeds of life. But I remember when it came out, I was like, oh, Sylvester Stallone, that's probably pretty good. And then I just never got around to watching it. But once I started to pick it up because I knew season 2 was coming, I was like, oh, okay, well, we should do that. I'll make an effort to catch up on it. And well, I really enjoyed season 1. I enjoy the dynamics of everybody. And I think Sylvester Stallone is also, he gets to showcase a little bit of a lighter side of him because there's you know, one-liners and such. So I think it's good. Although this one, it kind of like it kind of had a nice flow off of the first one, and then it kind of I don't want to talk about the end of it quite yet, but Um, it, it was I'll say it was on par with the first one.
Yeah, I would say so too, generally. We'll talk about the I don't want to say pacing necessarily, but yeah, like action, I guess,
Yeah,
or climax, or I'm not sure what to call it, but there it seems like there were some issues with that in the last few episodes.
yeah, and I genuinely enjoy Dwight's interactions with Bodhi, with Tyson,
Oh yeah.
and then also the villain arcs and the antagonist arcs. They're strong enough that like you hate them because they're kind of villains, but you also there's some appeal to their arcs. There's a little bit of depth to the character. It's not just hating the character for the sake of hating them, or because
Oh
you're
yeah.
supposed to because they're the bad guy.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And this is one of the many Taylor Sheridan shows that we've covered. So obviously, if it's a Taylor Sheridan show, it's got to be pretty good. So
Yeah.
we saw some return actors. Taylor Sheridan likes to use the same actors in a lot of his projects. So Tyson's dad was the warden from Mayor of Kingstown, which obviously I don't think I realized in the first season, but yeah, I noticed because we had just watched that a few months ago. So I was like, I was like, why do I know that guy? Oh, okay.
I think they came out originally. I think they came out right around the same time as each other.
Yeah.
So depending on which one you watched first, you know what I mean? Like one may not have triggered the memory that the other one would have.
Yeah. I don't know that they did. And then I'm not sure if you would know, but at Jimmy's funeral, in the like second to last episode or whenever that was, when they had all the Native Americans gathered doing his funeral, I think it was, is his name Mo? What, am I just making that up?
Was Mo in it? I didn't see him. I didn't
I
recognize
I I thought I saw that's his name, right? The guy from
in real
Yellowstone with like
life. Yeah.
usually he has braids.
Yeah. And in real life, his name's Mo as well.
That's the actor's name and it's his
Yeah.
character's name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I did see him and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's the guy from Yellowstone. And I'm not totally sure. He had his hair different. It wasn't in braids. I think it was
Yeah.
just like hanging down. So I'm think that might be him. And I did see one or two other kind of smaller actors that I'm
hmm
thinking were also repeats, but I'm like forgetting about.
Well, Thresher. Thresher was the one of the Beck brothers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that guy, I feel like he's been the bad guy in a lot of things. And I want to say for some reason, was he the bad guy?
Typecast.
I didn't get a chance to look at his filmography, but wasn't he the bad guy in like Smallville or a show kind of like that from like
Oh,
25 years ago?
he could have. Was that Smallville was that long ago? Holy shit. Um,
Yeah, I think it was late 90s or early 2000s.
he's very typecast. He always plays the role of either bad guy or
Yeah.
sleazeball. Like bad guy or
Yes.
corporate sleazeball.
Yeah, so I thought that that was funny. Obviously, I recognized him right away. I'm like, that guy always plays a bad guy. And then in the first season of this show, I wasn't really a Sylvester Stallone fan. Like, I didn't watch the show because he was in it. I just watched the show because I thought it looked good. But the first season of the show really kind of won me over as far as Sylvester Stallone goes. Like, it really made me respect him and love his work. And
hmm
then from there, they had a great documentary on Netflix about him that was really interesting, like a year or so ago. And then I started watching his family's reality show. Like I follow his daughters, and his youngest daughter is actually in the show. She plays like the stable hand, Spencer, the blonde girl.
The blonde? Really?
The blonde girl. Yes,
Oh,
that's with the deep
interesting.
voice. That's her.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
yeah, I'm really, and I listen to like his daughters, his other two daughters have a podcast. So I'm really like hooked into the Stallone family and like I love them and I think they're awesome.
I wonder if she dyed her hair because I wouldn't peg Sylvester Stallone as having a blonde kid. I don't know why.
Well,
Maybe his wife's blonde. I don't know, or their mother. I don't know.
his wife is blonde. She's gorgeous, but the three daughters, I think they're all naturally brunettes, like dark hair.
Okay.
But like I think two of them dye their hair.
Okay.
So yeah, they all do have dark features, the brown eyes, like brown hair for the most part. But yeah, it kind of made me get into Sylvester Stallone in general. So I love this show for that. And then of course,
Don't tell me you've never seen Rambo.
I have never seen Rambo. I guess while you're in shock from that, I'll tell you I've never seen Rocky either.
I've never seen Rocky start to finish, and I haven't seen the other one, so I won't judge you on that one.
Yeah. Maybe someday I'll
Rambo.
watch it. Now that I love Sylvester Stallone, maybe I'll give it a try. No
And
promises that I'll like it.
Since you watched the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight, you could say you're a boxing fan now, so it'll appeal to you.
Yeah, true. And of course I love the organized crime stuff. I've always loved mob stuff. I've read a lot of books on it and things like that. So I love that. I love the humor. I love the drama. So that's what made me excited for this show. And you made a reference earlier to the fact that there's such a fun cast. Like it's just an ensemble cast. So you have like the weed store crew, you have the ones who hang around the bar or the club or whatever we'll call it. You've got Margaret and the people that work for her on her ranch. So did you develop a favorite character over season 2?
Quite a bit, but they're almost continuations. Most of them are just continuations from season 1.
From the first season, yeah.
Every time I see Mitch, who is, I guess, probably the most noteworthy name from the opening credits besides Sly, Garrett Hedlund, I always think of the Four Brothers movie, which is kind of this dopey street crime vigilante movie with Mark Wahlberg and Tyrese. So every time I see his name, that's always what I think of. But I really kind of enjoyed Mitch, and it's funny to me that Dwight came to town, stumbled into Mitch's bar, had the ribs, and they wind up with this partnership. They convert this towny dive bar into a casino of sorts. And then all of a sudden, Mitch, this is his business. This isn't Dwight's business. He kind of wants to go do his own thing with the dealership now that Dwight's kind of more of the primary with the nightclub. So I found that but like there's no animosity. Like he's not jealous for that. It's kind of like he's along for the ride. You're making me all this money now. I kind of want my own thing on the side.
Yeah, so that's why he was, performing at the bar. And I think he's just kind of like, you know what, let's just stick with the things that we're good at, right? So I don't think he has any problem with it in that regard. And I mean, I probably like him the best as well. I mean, there's a lot of people I like, but he's just, he's tough. He can handle himself. He's funny. He's wise. He offers a lot of nuggets of wisdom to Tyson and the other characters. He's just kind of the whole package. So like he doesn't make any bad decisions where you're like, oh dear Lord, why?
No.
So I just generally like him. I would say I like him the best. And then of course,
when it comes time to crack skulls, he's ready.
Yeah, but he's not like a cold-hearted guy. You know what I mean? Which is funny because he's ready to throw down whenever, but he's not like a crazed killer or anything.
He's a real Western man.
He is. He's a legit Western dude. And I mean, a lot of the like weed store people, like I love that whole, you have Fred and then you have Grace. Like I've grown to like Grace this season. She's just pretty funny, like what she adds. Like in the first season, it was kind of like, oh, who is this girl with the weird haircut? It's like shaved on one side. I'm like, oh man. But she's pretty funny. And then Bodie too. And
I love Bodie.
Like he's very practical and he can be scared of things, but like that's not unlike me. So I relate to him, and he's hysterical also.
He's got such a dry sense of humor. And actually, he's another name that I recognize from the opening credit because Martin, the only reason I know who Martin Starr is because he was one of Seth Rogen's stoner friends in Knocked Up.
Oh, okay. Did he not have facial hair, or did he look a little bit different maybe?
No, he had a beard. Yeah, he had
Okay.
a beard.
Maybe
He
he
had.
had like shorter hair on his head or something.
I don't. You might. I think you might be thinking of Jay Baruchel.
No, I don't think so. I think I know who
Um,
he is.
cause he was the one they always made fun of because he looked like the shoe bomber.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so he
He had
just
like the
has
little
that look.
Asian girlfriend. Yeah.
He has that nerdy kind of funny look. So,
Yeah.
yeah, he's a comedic relief character for sure a lot of the time.
Yeah. And when especially early on when they're resolving Dwight's court case,
Mhm.
and of course Dwight's going to represent himself, so he's standing up in front of everyone going over the case and such. And I think, well, one instance they're having an argument over innocent versus not guilty, and then so
Oh,
that
yeah.
goes on for a little while, and then Dwight stands up, he looks at it like, "Are you guys all high?" And Boyga's like, "What did you expect? You chose to have a mock trial in a weed shop."
Fair question.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it I might as well bring it up now. I had noted down this moment in one of the later topics, but you noted the fact that they're talking about, I think, having to shut down um the casino and also the weed store, and they start talking about, I think it's the expression "go to the mattresses" or "going to the
Yeah.
mattresses," which means like preparing for battle, I guess, kind of. I looked it up. And I've never heard that expression, probably because I'm not in the mob. But so that was a funny conversation because you have all the, I think it's Grace, Bodie, you have all the weed store characters arguing about the origin of that expression. Like, oh no, it came from the Romans. And what was your quote that you had?
Bodie, enough with the fucking history of mattresses. We're in a crisis here.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny. I just love like the dynamic of them like questioning all these larger topics and just talking to death about certain things.
But there's also a serious twist in Bodhi's arc because Bodhi's a very pacifist,
Mm,
and he's throughout this, not just this season, but of the previous season, he's very apprehensive when Dwight's ready to go knock some people around. And when Jimmy the Creek gets shot, all of a sudden Bodhi like something clicks on in his head, like, no, let's kill his mothers. He's not playing around anymore.
mm. Yeah, he has his mind changed by such a pivotal event.
Yeah.
So, and then another person we didn't talk about yet is Tyson. So, I mean, he can be comedic relief, he can be funny. I think he has good intentions, but like he's just a kid, right? He's young. So he just does a lot of dumb stuff that I can't really understand. Like I kind of cringe when I'm like, no, he's not going to. Please don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, I gave him a little pass for going to Belvalacqua's house only because
Mm,
he's he's not, it took that for him to really trust Dwight's long-term
mm,
scope of revenge or what have you. Um,
yeah.
it took something like that to really click in his head. But at this point, he's just filled with rage because his father almost died, and almost died from Tyson trying to do a nice gesture for him, giving him the nice car. So I kind of gave him a pass on that. The other and then generally from Tyson's arc, I feel bad for him a lot of the time
Mm,
because he's out here like he's trying to make a life for himself in the new age of society or whatever, and it never seems to be good enough for his father
mm,
because his father's this nose to the grindstone, get your hands
yeah.
dirty, hardworking man type of deal. And like there's a certain sense of proving yourself that Tyson has to do in his father's eyes that doesn't feel like he ever really fulfills that.
Yeah, I think he's kind of wanting his father's approval. You know, his father's kind of just like, well, you're just a gangster. Like, how am I supposed to be proud of that? And so he's just kind of trying to win his father's approval. But I did like how when he screws up, Dwight and the others could easily write him off. They could kill him. I mean, so I liked that they were kind of trying to teach him a lesson to be like, listen, if this were the real mob, you'd be dead in a second. But we're your family, and we're not going to do that to you. But like, you have to know that what you did was not smart.
Yeah. Well, there's a certain someone that Dwight has a lot more reason to write off, and he didn't do it to him. So that should mean Tyson's safe for eternity.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think so. So speaking of Dwight, obviously Dwight's the main character. He's cool. I I love the wisdom he gives, like as a storyteller. He'll talk about stories from his past, and you believe it's a real person, just the experience he brings to the character of Dwight Manfredi. So yeah, obviously I love Dwight. He's one of my favorite characters as well.
I don't know why. It reminded me of that scene from season one where somebody makes a comment about his name that's not very Italian. And he said, "Oh, my parents were big fans of Eisenhower." Oh, and the thing that with Dwight that Sylvester Stallone adds depth to is this his kind of easygoing nature. Like he has this presence about him that you don't mess with Dwight,
Mhm.
but he's kind of like he's kind of still very approachable. Like even like the guy driving the association manager driving around in his golf cart, like he's
Yeah.
being a stick up Dwight's ass, and even
Yeah.
that, like he kind of still has a jovial back and forth with him.
Yeah.
Uh, and even when he's meeting with Bevilacqua or Thresher or Chicky or Vince, even when he's still meeting with them, he still has a lighter approach about him. So he doesn't necessarily put off this hardened mafioso crime boss. He's kind of like your fun uncle who just happens to be in the mafia.
Right. Like how I said about Mitch, he's not like a cold-hearted killer. Like you relate to him because he's funny. He's not a bad person. Yes, he does bad things occasionally, but he's not a bad person.
Yeah. And to that point, it didn't force a tear. I won't say that, but it did kind of hit me in the feels a little bit when Tina had to leave
Mm,
because I really thought like they had patched that up, and
yeah.
I feel like it would be a very harsh 180 for that to be resolved and for her and the kids to come back. So, so that kind of hurt, and I think you could see it in Dwight's face that it hurt him when she left.
Oh yeah. And I think we'll pick up on it in a few topics, but I think that when there was that visitor at the door, um, kind of a big, I
Yeah,
wouldn't say plot twist, but when
yeah,
there was that visitor at the door, I think because of his daughter leaving, I think Dwight was able to relate to that visitor who was expressing that they felt like a failure and like they did everything
yeah,
wrong and that their kids are like paying for it. And I think that kind of struck Dwight because his daughter had just left and he kind of felt the same a little bit. Like she's leaving because of me and what I did, and I screwed this up.
right. Yeah, yeah, and you may be onto something in the sense of the forgiveness in that moment
Yes.
where he saw a relatable circumstance.
Yes.
The other thing is again with like a jovial relationship, like when he offers Bevilacqua the ribs, when Bevilacqua comes and he's trying to
Oh, yeah.
negotiate a deal for them going forward, it's like sit down, have the ribs, they're great. And of course he never eats it, so he walks down and he goes like, so you don't want the ribs then? He's like, fuck the ribs, Dwight.
Yeah, he kept throwing the jab of like, you gonna have the
Yeah,
ribs? Oh, I love the ribs. Oh, the ribs? Like just kept mentioning it.
yeah. But it's not always silly because after, well, the kind of the revenge moment with Jackie Ming when you figure Dwight's, he's the boss. He's gonna take care of this. But he offers Tyson the opportunity to end Jackie Ming. Um,
Hmm.
and I thought that was like a, a kind of a cap on an earlier scene where Tyson confided in Dwight that he looks up to him. It's like
Yes.
what like he says. I forgot exactly what Dwight said, but something like, "Well, why are you here? What are you doing?" And
Yeah.
Tyson says something along the lines of, "It's like I want to be you."
Yeah.
And I think that kind of hit Dwight a little harder than he expected it.
Yeah. Um, kind of going into that, gangster theme. So oddly enough, this show kind of makes me think of The Sopranos sometimes because it The Sopranos was a serious show, but it does comedy in a certain way that's brilliant, where it like keeps it inside of the drama and like it's sort of dry humor, but it's still funny. Like you could smile or laugh from like a serious scene, but it's also like a storytelling device. So, were there any funny comedic moments kind of in between all the mob hits and the drama over whose turf is whose?
First it's my turn to make you gasp and tell you that I never watched The Sopranos.
Oh my, see, I wasn't sure, but you know what? I was telling my husband too. I was like, you would enjoy it. I think you'd really love it. Like I started listening to a podcast of the children from the
Mhm.
Sopranos. So, obviously they don't talk about Sopranos all the time. They talk about their lives, and stuff like that. But it's kind of got me into the Sopranos again, like remembering certain scenes and certain events because I did watch it. It was not more than 4 or 5 years ago. So I didn't
Okay.
watch it when it was on. My dad was obsessed with it. He would get a VHS tape from one of our family friends because our family friends had HBO and we didn't. So they would tape
Oh,
it for
recording tape?
Yes, they would tape it for him and then, drop it by his work so he would watch it. So he would, I think, be like a few episodes behind, but yeah, he would watch it from the VHS tapes when it was on. He loved Tony Soprano.
Taping it is good. At least you didn't say he was getting it from Columbia House.
No, no. I know.
One moment I thought was that I enjoyed watching. Yeah, I do not like Vince. I do not. I think he's a snivelly little weasel prick.
Oh
And
yeah.
so I really enjoyed it when Vince kind of, because Ticky's on the no-fly list from
Hmm.
his firearm mishap. So Vince flies down there, Bevilacqua meets him, and they're sitting at this like, I don't know, a Southern cuisine type of mom and pop
Yeah.
restaurant. And
A little
they
like diner
order
almost.
Yeah, and they order like drinks to the table, but it's not like an alcoholic drink. It was like the house lemonade or something like that. They're
Yeah.
arguing over like it's like we gotta get the lemonade, everyone get the lemonade. So it winds up being Dwight and Bevilacqua just negotiating with each other, and they're kind of like pissed off Vince. And then they leave like we're done here, and Vince is like, "What am I supposed to do?" It's like, "Well, you got the lemonade coming," or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Vince is just like too big for his britches and he's like
Yeah,
really like putting out the feelers to be like, "Oh, can I do this? Can I be the boss?" And he's just uh
he
under
wants to
delivering, I
be
feel like.
he wants to be as big as those britches are.
Oh yeah.
But like he's not self-aware to realize like, bro, you're not Dwight. You're not even Chicky. You damn well not Bevilacqua.
Yeah. He's just not he's not all that basically, but
Yeah.
but uh yeah. So I thought that was nice when Dwight kind of showed him up. And Dwight's
Mhm.
good at that. He's good at making a fool out of people. Um, there were a few funny moments that I thought were interesting because again, it's like it's comedic relief, but it's done in a
Mhm.
way where it's not like over the top or obnoxious. It's very like dry. So when they're in their car and they're talking about the band Fish, Phish,
Yeah, yeah.
and so Dwight has had way too many weed lollipops and he's like crazy. So they're all in the car, Tyson, Dwight, Mitch, Bodie. I don't know if I missed anyone.
I think it's
Um,
just the four of them.
yeah, and
Yeah.
he's telling a story about this song and I think how he remembers it because that was when his right ear started ringing because he was at a club and he was right near the
Mhm.
speaker or something like that. And again, like I love the storytelling aspect. It's just brilliant. Just the way that he tells the story, you really believe this happened to him or like this happened to this guy. And I love the dynamic of them discussing topics like the boys are just, shooting the shit, talking about this song or talking about the band Fish. And, Dwight is like, Fish, what the hell? Like,
Yeah.
he's so confused what they're even talking about. Like he doesn't know anything about Fish. Well, he's a mobster. Why would he listen to Fish?
Well, also there's a little bit of an age gap. So like
Yeah.
I think at that point Mitch is driving and or he's at least in the front seat and Tyson's driving and the two of them are just kind of
Yes.
like laughing it off because
Yeah.
like this guy who's 25, 30 years older than us doesn't know this
Right.
band of more contemporary memory.
It's like how we laugh at like my husband's grandma when she says something like that's generational, well, she has no idea about. And we're just like,
Who's Metallica? We cooked in cast iron.
yeah. And then another funny part was when Dwight's daughter took him along because she wanted her kids to go to this like hoity-toity school where they talk about feelings and
Yeah.
all that stuff. And I don't know if Dwight called it a snowflake school. I think he might have. Like I don't know where I got that term from, but maybe I called it that. But it's just he's just thinking she's nuts. So he's kind of along for the ride. They hear like the headmaster or principal or whoever like talking like, oh, here, we don't do that. We do this. And Dwight's just like sitting there rolling his eyes like, are you serious? Like,
But he also uses it like in his other interactions where he has a conflict with someone, but he approaches in a jovial fashion. He
yes.
kind of like offers the alternative as a suggestion, like maybe you should do it this way. Like so they're out in the playground and he goes like, well, I think these kids could use a little dose of street smarts. Or he says to, or I don't know whether he says to the headmaster or one of the boys after the fact, where it's like, you know how you stop that? A little knock to the teeth or whatever it was.
Yeah, that was funny. And because we already went over the mattresses one, that was another thing I wrote down, but I just thought of a part that we were laughing at was just because it was so like relevant and like a little bit out of place because it was a little bit comedic in like a serious moment. So when Vince is like says to Chicky like, we got a proposition for you, and then I think Chicky's on the phone with like support for like a flight or something, and he's like asked his flight number or something, and he's like H43, and he's like getting all pissed. And then he goes through this whole thing, and the customer service person on the phone's like, oh, I'm sorry, it says here that you've been like on the no-fly list or you've been blocked from flying. And he's like, oh, are you fucking serious? And so then it ends. It just, you think of this, I know you haven't seen The Sopranos, but you have Tony Soprano, who's this tough guy that does bad things, and he's put in these like just hilarious situations where he's like, are you fucking kidding me? And he gets all pissed. And that's what it was like with Chicky, because when he's talking to this chick on the phone and she's like, you're blocked from flying, and he's like, what? And then he says, go fuck yourself, and slams down the phone. And I was like, can you imagine? Like, I'm sure customer service people here, are sworn at all the time, but can you imagine being like not knowing that this guy who's like a real mobster, a real gangster is like swearing at you and mad at you?
Well, to that point, Chicky fits the part of your stereotypical gangster, just like the way he talks, the way he moves, his enunciation. So, like, in that situation, if he says that in that manner, you almost might think, "Oh my God, I just pissed off the mob."
Well, that's what's funny is, that's the thing that we wish we could say to customer service people, but we wouldn't. Well, like, I know most people wouldn't. They wouldn't like swear at a customer service person, even how mad they are. Some people would, but most of us are not going to because we would feel bad. But here, he's a gangster and he doesn't feel bad. He's like pissed.
Well, now you don't even have that option. You're just angry typing to an AI prompt.
Right. Or repeating, talk to an agent. And they're like, I'm sorry, I couldn't understand you. Agent.
Representative.
Yes, representative. Um, so speaking of being mad at customer service, so here's a little bit of a tell them why you mad segment. So why is Armand the absolute worst? Like I wasn't sure who I didn't care more
So
about,
bad.
him or Ming. Like I kept saying to my husband, I'm like, I hope both of them are like on the chopping block and are dead by the end of
He's
this
so
season.
bad. But Ning, at least you can respect the character just being a cutthroat gangster mob crime killer. Like at least I can respect the character. That Armand is the worst because he's a sniveling, weaselly little coward. He calls his kid, mind you, well, actually it might be just before. Just before he steals the money from Goody. And he calls his kids and he's crying on the phone.
Yeah.
He's like, I love you so much. I miss your mom. Blah, 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 blah. And then he walks into Dwight's house and he takes $500,000 from Goody. I'm just like, what? And then just being a total a-hole to Spencer, the girl
Yeah.
she tends the horses, just being a total a-hole to her. And Margaret walks up and like, yo, what are you doing? Get off the ranch. So he just, ugh, I like every time he was on screen, I had this zero respect for him.
I
Got all worked up.
yeah, I just like the whole thing with Cal Thresher, like everything he did was all his own fault. Like the
Yeah,
fact that he and I think I was like, yes, because Cal Thresher actually says to him, like, wait, did you think I gave you that money like out of the goodness of my heart or for nothing? Like, don't you realize like you're indebted to me because of that? Like, what did he really think? Like I know that when people are in dire straits like that, like think of like
they're not.
drug addicts or people like that where they're like desperate for money, like they'll do
Yeah,
anything. But at the same time, you just didn't think that this would come to bite you in the ass later. Like I and then when he was drinking and stuff and they're talking to him about his drinking, oh, are you drunk? Like you don't look good, buddy. Like why don't you just go home or blah blah blah. Like he was the one who was pushing his family away. The fact that his ex-wife or wife wants to take the family away to Denver is all of your fault, buddy, because of the way you've
yeah,
been acting. Like everything he did was his fault. And at least he kind of owned up to it in the end um when spoiler, he's the one that shows up at Dwight's door and he's like babbling, like crying like a baby. Yeah, and basically saying like I don't want to be here anymore, I don't deserve to live, like I just mess everything up, and like it's no wonder that my wife hates me and my kids are going to hate me and blah blah blah. And he's just like the lowest of the low, like he's hit rock bottom.
no, he's boot scum. Um, but even with Thresher, like he goes back to Thresher and he wants more money, and this is after he's already gone back to Dwight and told him what he did. It's like, did you really think that after you told Dwight, after you tattled to Dwight on Thresher, you really thought you were gonna go back to Thresher and get more money? Like, even if you were willing to just dump on Dwight and tell Thresher everything, you really think he's gonna give you more money after that? Come on.
He's
Like,
just I mean, like even when he did redeem himself by helping them out, like don't get me wrong, like I don't think they could have taken down Ming without his help. Like he
right.
had a big hand in it, but he just got on my nerves because like even when Dwight puts a good word in for him, he's like, "Oh, I want my job back." And Dwight's like, "Okay, I'll talk to Margaret." And like he should have started by like when he like walks up and he's like talking to Spencer and then Margaret sees him, the first thing he should have done was stare Margaret in the eyes and say, "Look, I'm sorry. I had a bad problem with drinking. Like I'm sorry for what I did. I'm sorry for snapping and yelling at you." Like I mean, he did patch things up with Spencer beforehand. She's like, "Yeah, we talked extensively about it when we were cleaning out the stalls or whatever." But like that was the first thing that he should have done is like apologize to Margaret for what he did. Like, yes, you redeemed yourself, but like don't get caught up with like thinking that you're not shitty because you did a lot of shitty things. Like you
Yeah,
should
and
own
like
up to that from the get-go.
And even with his redemption arc, it still felt, I still think I'm like, nobody here has any obligation to forgive you, even with the good thing you did in setting up Ming. Nobody has
Yeah.
any obligation to forgive you, and I couldn't blame any of them if they just told you to kick rocks.
Mm, that's enough of venting about Armand. So, I mean, the first few episodes of the season were sort of setting it up, but for most of the season, we had this just massive battle between the bosses. So we had Bevilacqua, who I think was it Bill Bevilacqua? So they called him BB a lot.
Yeah.
He's like the Kansas City gang. We got Chicky and Vince, the New York gang. We've got Jackie Ming, who's the head of the Chinese gang. Then we've got Cal Thresher, who's kind of by himself, but kind of with the Chinese for a bit. And then we've got Dwight and his Tulsa gang. So were there like a couple moments to you where the leadership of these bosses really stood out?
Well, I'll tell you who it didn't stand out with first, and that's Thresher. I couldn't
Yeah.
stand Thresher. He only exudes power when he's manipulating weak people like
Yeah.
Armand. And quite frankly, that's not that hard. So, like, Thresher to me, when there's that one scene in the grow house where he's trying to make an example of some of the workers, I forgot
Yes.
whether they worked extra hours when they were told to go home or they stole from the
Mhm.
grow house or they did something not right. And he's trying to make an example of them. And Ming upstages them and shoots them both in the head. And Thresher's sitting there like, oh, no, 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 no. Like, you didn't know who this guy was? Like, you didn't know he was capable of doing shit like that? So Thresher to me, like, he was only exuding strength when the person he was trying to exude strength against is inherently weak. So I just had
Yeah.
like no respect for him at all.
Really, yeah, what it ended up being at the end, and I think Dwight even says it to him. He's like, listen, leave the gangster stuff to the gangsters. Like,
Mhm.
just, let's part ways. You just go to your corner. Like, basically, I think that's the thing is at the end of the day, Thresher's like a businessman. He's got a lot of money. He like doesn't have, like, he's just not, yes, he's an a-hole, but he's not capable of killing people. And he doesn't really belong in that world. So like he just doesn't compare to the rest of these guys who um as far as like Bevilacqua goes, especially Bevilacqua, Ming, and I wrote down, I think it episode 3 that really stood out to me. That was really well done. I thought that whole, I think it was towards the end of the episode where I think it's one of Bevilacqua's guy tries to come and kill Dwight at the bar or the club. And that's where Tyson kind of wants to get involved. And Dwight's like, no, like, we're going to deal with this. So they go out back and deal with him in like the true mob
Mhm.
style. And then
Yeah.
they send, is it his finger or his head in a box to Bevilacqua or something like that?
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I forgot what they sent back to him, but
Don't they like put
it
it
was kind of like
at
sending
the
a
gate
message.
at the end of his driveway or something? And
Hmm.
he,
Yeah.
or maybe I feel like they give something back to him, like showing him, like, oh, the guy you sent, like, we dealt with him and this is part of him.
I remember when Bevilacqua contacted Dwight back, he said something like, "Now there's a body in a box at the end of my driveway or something."
Yeah. So it was a power move for sure.
I
And
like
then
Bevilacqua though. I like Bevilacqua because he's the tough as nails SOB.
that's the actor's Frank Grillo. And my husband doesn't know the names of a lot of actors. He's really bad with names, but he's like, that's Frank Grillo, I think. Or he's like, I know that guy. That was one of the rare guys that he knew. Um, and then I think the big power move to me was really what orchestrated the whole end of the season with handling Ming the way that they did with Armand's little secret dealing to
Yeah.
redeem himself. That whole situation, because Dwight dealt with him in that way, that gave him the upper hand where he was able to be like, Bevilacqua came to him and was like, oh, you're going to cut me in. And he's like, I dealt with Ming for you. So no, I'm not doing that. And
Yeah.
so, and then like, it gave Thresher the ability to just, I think one of them thanked him. They're like, oh, thanks for dealing with Ming. Like, he's like, yeah, you're welcome. But like, you don't get anything. Like, I did that for you. Like, you don't
That
get
was
anything more out of this.
Yeah, that was Thresher, the Dwight and Thresher, and that's another thing, like to lose respect for Thresher because Thresher's over here thinking like they're gonna be friends and partners, and Dwight's like, no, I, you were the one with your ass on the line. I
Yeah.
bailed you out. I took care of Ming. You're gonna sign all of this over to me, and you're gonna go back to your little rich roots and with your
Right.
oil family and enjoy being rich. I think that was the quote he said. Just go enjoy your life of being rich.
Right.
And Thresher just goes like, okay, and scurries off like the little rat that
Yeah.
he is.
Yeah, he just could not hack it. And speaking of people who couldn't hack it, Chicky. So, when the leadership of Chicky was slipping away, that was when Dwight and others would ask to speak to Vince on the phone. Vince was kind of injecting himself in there, and then it got to the point where these leaders would say, hey, put Vince on the phone. And Chicky's like, are you serious? Like, you're talking to me. And they're like, no, put Vince on the phone. And that's when, Vince was acting like more of a leader than Chicky was. And that was the reason why they were able to basically perform this coup and kind of get him out.
I I generally, as much as I dislike Chicky overall, I generally still had a respect for him because he still kind of ruled over his sector
Mm.
of the crime bosses with an iron fist. So I still kind of generally had some kind of a respect for him. But for him to just let himself get forced out by Weasley Vince was was not a good look for him.
No.
This big hulking monster of a man gets forced out by this little guy who could just talk a good game to other
Yeah.
crime families. I'm just like, yeah, no, and then he still tries to play the big dick energy card, walking up to Bevelacqua's front porch and sitting there and like still trying to prove like he's some higher authority to Bevelacqua. Like
Yeah.
Bevelacqua will F you up in a bad way. Do not walk up to this man's house and disrespect him.
I mean, the moment where Bevilacqua like shot Chicky in the face, or in the head, I was just not expecting that. It happened so quick that I was just like, like
But it was so rewarding.
it was kind of rewarding because he was just a pain in the ass at that point. But I mean, we'll talk about the ending in a second, but it was sort of anticlimactic because just like after that happened, like it felt like yeah, obviously Chicky is not Dwight's best friend or anything, but it felt like there was like no reaction to that. You know what I mean? Like it was
Well,
never spoken about again, or like nobody even said like, oh damn, like it just, there was no reaction to that, and I was like like sitting there, it shocked the hell out of me.
but didn't Dwight then off say Bevelacqua, okay, you proved yourself, here's 50% after that? Like didn't he offer him a deal after he realized Chicky just got his brains blown out?
Well, I think when he realized, Chicky wasn't going to be a problem anymore, he might have. But like, I literally remember all that happened after Bevilacqua shot Chicky was, I think Bevilacqua like walked away pretty quickly after, and then Bigfoot kind of walked up and Dwight goes, "Yeah, Bigfoot, could you just dispose of him?" Like,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Sure, sir." Like that was it. Like there wasn't like any sort of, not like I expected him to be emotional or anything, but there was no like, oh shit, like damn.
Yeah, I can't really fault Dwight for being cold in that scenario because Chicky was always like somehow indirectly threatening Dwight.
Yeah, he was like a thorn in his side. Like I get that, but unless the one thing I thought of is maybe Bevilacqua told Dwight he was going to do that.
He could have.
Maybe he told him like, listen, we're going to come by the bar today. He says he's got a proposition for you. Like, he's like, I'm gonna go there and we'll just take him out. Like, he's just a problem. He's a thorn in both of our sides. Like, I'll just shoot him. Like,
Yeah.
I could see that happening, like, which is why Dwight wouldn't be surprised.
Or he knew, or maybe he knew that he had to do something for Dwight to cut him into the business.
Hmm.
So after that previous discussion where Dwight just would not take his deal no matter what, maybe Bevelak was just figuring in his head, I gotta do something for Dwight in order to get a cut of this cheese.
Yeah, that could be true.
And then with Dwight's crew, I found Dwight's crew to be like Dwight has a real leadership aspect about his
Hmm.
posse. He was like he showed that he was a boss in the courtroom, but after that, he gives Tyson the axe to
Hmm.
kill Jackie Ming. He lets Mitch do his own venture with the car dealership. At the end, when it seems like everything's happy and hunky dory, he tells the whole squad that he's gonna cut them into he's gonna cut all of them into the profits.
Right.
So like there's an altruistic sense of leadership from Dwight as it pertains to his crew.
Yeah, he's a good leader. And I think, like, that was at the premiere of the commercial from Mitch's dealership, which is awesome. So yeah, a little bit of comedic relief there, but yeah, that's when he announces that the profits are going to be,
Yeah.
spread throughout. So we kind of leave things in a very positive position, but then um sort of at the end we get, like, I don't know if it's like a SWAT team invading Margaret's house, where like apparently Dwight doesn't sleep at his own house anymore. He's just like
Yeah, I
at her
don't know.
house every day.
They didn't really address that. Did he sell the house?
Maybe he sold the house when his daughter moved. I mean, I
Maybe.
don't know, but what about his sister? Isn't she still hanging around? So where's she
Yeah.
living? Like, he just seems like he's living at Margaret's ranch now. So
Yeah.
we have this SWAT team burst in. They take both of them. And then I think Dwight like kind of wakes up or comes to, and there's a light like shining in his face, and he sees the figure of a person, and they say to him, "You work for us now." So who is it that tells him that? Who do you think it is?
I didn't pay a lot of thought to it just because that whole scene seems so rushed. Like you go from happy ending
Yeah.
to going to sleep at Margaret's house. They wake up, they bum rush him in, put the bag over his head, bring him to the disposition room, shine a light in his face. Hey, you work for us. I'm like, what just happened in the last 90 seconds?
I know. It was all very quick. So I had two thoughts. This is kind of where I thought they'd be taking it for the next season. Um I think the easy situation, or like the most logical situation probably, is that maybe they want Dwight to be an FBI informant to help take down someone else. I don't know who. Maybe it's Bevilacqua. I mean, I don't know, but that he had that interaction with them previously when they told him that there was going to be a hit out for him.
Yeah.
So they warned him, and they said, like, they were kind of like huffy about it, like, don't say we didn't warn you. Like, we're giving you this information, like, so I could see that the FBI wants him on their side for a specific reason to do something. Like, maybe Dwight is kind of the lesser evil and they need to take out a larger evil. Maybe it's a character we
Yeah.
haven't met yet who's like a terrible boss in Texas or somewhere else, who knows.
Yeah. That could be some underworld crime boss that's behind the scenes. And maybe Stacy works her way back into the show because we know she's got pulled out of that territory and brought back to the home office or whatever it was.
Yeah, but I mean, this was the person who actually said that was a guy. So I mean, maybe she does have something to do with it, but the
Oh no, I
person that,
know it's not her in the
right,
shadows.
right.
Yeah.
Maybe that person who actually said that is associated with her. I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the most logical explanation I could come up with for it. The other, like, balls to the wall crazy explanation I had for it is I did think it was sort of interesting how in these circumstances, I think, is it Cal that goes to Margaret or there's somebody that's telling her like, listen, you're in bed with a murderer and he's a murderer and he's this and he's that and he's bad and you don't know how bad he is. She's just kind of like very passive about Dwight's criminal activity. So is it possible that we're thinking that the reason that the SWAT team, like we're led to believe that the SWAT team is 100% because of Dwight, but what if it's not? What if she has some sort of criminal illegal activity going on? Like she did mention there was something with her ex. Yeah. So what if like she just seems too cool about his criminal activity? So what if it's not Dwight the whole time? Like what if they invaded her house because of her? And maybe they say you work for us now because they want Dwight to rat her out, or they want to say like, listen, this is what's been going on. Your girl's been doing XYZ. Like you're going to put her in prison. And that's going to be a difficult decision for him because she's like the love of his life, you know?
There could have been something she did that maybe she needed that because there was one interaction between her and Thresher, or maybe it was between her and Dwight, and she told him that she relied on Thresher to bail her out at one point, to bail her out with a lot of money. So there's some kind of financial relationship between the two of them. So maybe there was something she did that forced her hand to rely on someone like Thresher.
Or maybe she's not as naive as she looks, which is why she's willing to look the other way and is like, I don't care when people tell her that he's bad news. Like she just doesn't really seem to care. And I thought that was odd.
Yeah, I mean, we may be getting into a little bit of a rabbit hole, but it's definitely possible. I mean, I thought the ending kind of lacked a little bit of a punch because the way the last one ended, Dwight got hauled off in a paddy wagon. This one, it almost seems like Dwight's going to be doing them a favor. So Dwight could just tell them to piss off. I'm happy. There's no threats, and my businesses are profitable. Why should I care about helping you out? So it kind of felt like there was a little lack of dynamicism compared to the previous cliffhanger.
Yeah, to me, like aside from the whole SWAT team business that happened in the last like couple minutes of the 10th episode, like I think it's very possible that they could have, like, it wouldn't have been much of a cliffhanger, but they could have theoretically wrapped up the season and like had episode 9 be the last one because everything ended in a nice, pretty bow. You know what I mean? Yeah. But then I guess like they almost didn't need the 10th episode. So then you're thinking, wait, what are we going to see in the last episode if everything's already been wrapped up? So then they just kind of showed us all this stuff that filming the car dealership commercial was funny and stuff, but it wasn't like pertinent to the story or anything like that. It was just like fun filler. And then at the last couple minutes, they go and throw in a cliffhanger.
Yeah. Other than popping off Chicky and telling Thresher to kick rocks, I don't know what else was really resolved.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen next season, but those were my like reasonable explanations and then like crazy off the wall explanations. Yeah. And I mean, we're not off the wall. So if you enjoy listening to our show, we would appreciate it if you gave us 5 stars and left us some love. Also, make sure you follow along with us on Instagram and TikTok. He is Nutmeg, the number 2, Palmetto. I am Binge the Ginge with dots between the words for Instagram, all run together for TikTok. So give us both follows on social platforms and stay tuned to the show on all of our platforms. We have YouTube and Rumble for video. We have Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts for audio. So don't forget to join us this Sunday for another live discussion of the next Yellowstone episode. So we will see you shortly after 9 p.m. on Sunday. And then don't forget to catch up on another Taylor Sheridan show, Lioness, which I noticed that the show used to be called Special Ops Lioness. It seems like they've rebranded to just Lioness. So it's the same show, just so you know. So you can tune into our review of the 2nd season of Lioness in a couple of weeks. Until the next real review, Red and Red signing out.
In less than an hour, aircraft from here will join others from around the world. And you will be launching the largest aerial battle in the history of mankind.
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
What? Do what?
I'd like to be pimps from Oakland or cowboys from Arizona, but it's not Halloween.
Let the dogs out, you know, like, who let the dogs out? Who?
Who brought this guy along?
Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chump some of this shit.
Grow up, Peter Pan. Count Chocula.
X never, ever marks the spot.
One more thing. Do me a favor. Don't go chasing waterfalls.
You did it. You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
Mankind, that word should have new meaning for all of us today. We can't be consumed by our petty differences anymore.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
No. Try not. Do. Or do not. There is no try.
All right. Then you do us proud. Because I don't want no scrubs.
Don't act so surprised, Your Highness. You weren't on any mercy mission.
Not from tyranny, oppression, or persecution, but from annihilation. We're fighting for our right to live.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
I'll take care, all right? None but love. None but love.
10. X marks the spot.
Have any clue what's about to happen to him?
Oh, no chance in hell. Good night.
Peace! Fire, you son of a...
Hey, ain't too proud to beg.
Come on!
What?
It's not funny anymore.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not trying to
TLC
be.
references.
Still, nothing. I swear to you.
But as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.